If you're like me, you were surprised by the 2016 election. If you're also like me, you really appreciate reading, and reading has helped me grapple with the state of politics and culture in America since that election. I've read a lot of books about it from various perspectives, and what follows are 5 of my favorites, 5 books that really helped me make sense of what happened and what continues to happen in our country and in the world. So, I hope you enjoy. Welcome to Books and Big Ideas, what I'm reading, what I'm thinking about, with Joel Wentz. All right, these books aren't in any particular order, although I saved probably my highest recommendation for the last one, so the 5th book is going to be the one I probably recommend at the highest level. But all of these are valuable in different ways. So let's get into it. First is the book What Were We Thinking by Carlos Lozada, who is a book reviewer, book editor for the Washington Post. And this book is, well, it's basically an extended book report. I mean, he read a remarkable number of books about culture and politics during the Trump presidency and around it. And this book is his distillation and summary and kind of thematic organization of all of those books. He talks about a remarkable variety of books in this tiny little book, and he categorizes them into different subcategories about the state of media, the state of the American heartland, feminism, and the Me Too movement. Even there's a whole chapter just on Russia, books about Russia. So this book is basically a gold mine of kind of summaries of books about Trump and the Trump kind of moment. So if you want a starting point to just kind of generate a reading list on any of those subtopics that are interesting to you, definitely read What Were We Thinking? It's a great book. Number 2 is actually an historical perspective that I read recently, which is American Lion, John Meacham's biography of Andrew Jackson. And part of the reason I read this is because I just love presidential biographies, but also Trump liked to compare himself to Jackson, and lots of commentators compared him to Andrew Jackson, who was arguably the first kind of truly populist president who ran on a populist platform. And so the comparisons to Trump are pretty ready to make there. But this is a really good biography. John Meacham is a good writer, a good historian, and this is a very solid telling of Andrew Jackson's time in the White House. And reading it helped me see where comparisons to Jackson were valid and less valid. So I definitely recommend it if you are in American history and would like an historical perspective on what happened with, especially the populist kind of side of the Trump cultural moment. Number 3, really quickly, is The Fire Is Upon Us by Nicholas Bukala. I think I'm saying that right. This might seem out of left field because it's not really directly about Trump at all, but an important undercurrent to the entire Trump presidency and the Trump election is the topic of race and how that intersects with justice in American history. And this book is very excellent in a couple ways, but it's essentially a dual biography of James Baldwin and then William Buckley Jr., who are ideologically very different historical figures when it comes to the topic of race and justice and American history. But this book tells the story of those two men. It's extremely readable and it's extremely enlightening because I think more than almost any other book on the topic of race, it reveals the impasse between the progressive and conservative perspectives on race. And they're typified very well by Baldwin and Buckley and brought together in this book, and which focuses on their debate that was famously televised at Cambridge. So if you're really wanting to dive into kind of the cultural stuff going around on race and the topic of race and justice, this book is really excellent. Number 4, I've talked about this book a lot on the channel previously, so I'm not going to say too much more about it, but Jesus and John Wayne by Kristen Dumais. This book gets at another angle of the Trump moment, which is the values around masculinity and rugged masculinity and like the historical kind of yearning for a warrior figure in white evangelical Christianity in particular. It's a historical book. So it's not a theological argument, but it is an historical argument. And it's very excellently written. It's very enjoyable to read. I think it's very convincingly written, but I've said enough about that in other videos, so I'm just going to recommend it here one more time, Jesus and John Wayne. And then number 5, which is probably my highest recommendation, is a pretty new book from Michael Sandel, the Harvard philosopher, teaches politics and philosophy at Harvard. And this is The Tyranny of Merit by Michael Sandel again. The Tyranny of Merit. This is an absolutely outstanding look at the term meritocracy. In particular, it takes yet another angle on the cultural and political moment of around Trump, which is the the values, especially the neoliberal kind of focus on meritocracy and equality of opportunity and those kinds of languages, and personal responsibility, which is actually more associated with the conservative side now. But he talks about the values of meritocracy that have been kind of pushed so heavily in political discourse, and the harsh, dark side of meritocracy being that when you combine that with inequality, particularly economic inequality, that's drenched in language of meritocracy, it creates a seething, he argues it creates a seething resentment on those who are on the bottom end of inequality. Because the assumption then is if we're in a meritocracy and inequality is getting worse, then the people who don't have money, they don't have it because they don't have merit. They deserve the position they're in society. It's a very powerful argument. It's very well done. He's a very clear writer. Michael Sandel's done an excellent job in The Tyranny of Merit. And if you don't read any other book on this list, then I would definitely at least recommend grabbing that. It's a very eye-opening argument. So those are my 5 books on understanding the Trump moment. I hope you found this helpful. Thanks for watching.